Hello, and welcome to a live Deprogrammed with Keri Smith. I'm your host, Keri. This is the show where we talk about ideology, culture, and sometimes politics. We are necessarily talking a lot about politics leading up to the election. That's not always the focus. The primary focus for the show is ideology, and specifically looking at the world and coming to understand that the dominant ideology currently operating in the West, the dominant religion, the dominant belief system, is something called woke ideology, something called social justice ideology. It's a belief system that I was in for 2 decades before I left, and understanding that it is not liberalism. That is the goal of the show, is helping to pull people out of the belief system I was in, helping to pull liberals out specifically who are confused and who have been brainwashed like I was to believe that's liberalism. So this is the show you're watching. Welcome. Um, I've been on the road for a month, so I see a lot of regular folks in the chat. Thank you so much for your patience, and thanks for being here today, and thanks for your patience with me on the road. I did do some streams, the most memorable of which I think was the in-person conversation I got to have with Maria Tuscan of Tuscan Knits. And uh, thank you guys so much for checking that one out, for sharing it. There's still a lot of love for Maria and a lot of interest in her, and seeing how she's doing now, 5 years after the woke, knitting wars, after the woke cancellations in the knitting world, which affected her and several other, many other designers and customers and yarn dyers. And so that I got to meet her in person. That was one of the best parts of the trip. I got to see so many people in person. Some of you in the chat, I got to see you in person on the trip, but we were gone for a month, and we're back. I'm back on my regular schedule, although you may have noticed today's show started an hour later than usual. That might become permanent. I'm not sure yet. We'll see. We'll see what people's time schedules, what people prefer. But yeah, it was a great time on the road. I missed the regularity of doing the streaming though. So I'm a little rusty today. So give me some grace, please. I'm like, what do I have to talk about? It's not as, I've got it organized here on the screen, but it's not as organized in my head as it usually is. One quick announcement. If you are in the Austin, Texas area, we're going to do another Deprogrammed meetup. And I decided to do this because I have a friend, someone you guys may recognize in town, and we're gonna take advantage of that and go see a movie together. We're doing a meetup tomorrow. Where, let me put this on the screen so you can see this. We're doing a meetup to go see Matt Walsh's movie Am I Racist, which is in theaters. And the last I checked, his movie is currently number 3 in the nation, beating out studio releases, which is amazing. And it's all from grassroots word of mouth, because not one mainstream movie critic or reviewer has bothered to see it or give a review. Last I saw, it had a 99% rating on Rotten Tomatoes from the audience. I've heard from so many people who've gone to see it in the theaters who said, you're going to love it. It's really funny. Go see it. So tomorrow, if you're in the Austin area, we are going to go together. Here's the theater we're meeting at. Get this on the screen. So it's the 7:30 p.m. showing tomorrow, and we're going to meet at like 7 in the lobby. Look for a white lady with a hat. You will find me. And this is, let's see, this is in Round Rock. I figure that's like a good middle way between people in Austin and people who live further north. So we're meeting in Round Rock. It's at the Cinemark 14, and it's at 4401 off of Interstate 35. And it's the 7:30 showing. And if you want to sit with us, I'm just risking it. I'm going to buy the tickets there, so we can all buy our tickets at the same time and hopefully sit near one another. I don't think hopefully not on a Tuesday night is it going to be completely packed. Hopefully for him it would be for the movie to be selling out on a Tuesday night, but I think we'll be fine. So I'm not getting tickets in advance. I'm going to get them when we get there. And so I know some of you already said you're coming. I look forward to seeing you. It'll be fun. And yeah, I want to do more of these in-person things. So this is a good opportunity to go and support his movie. And if you've already seen it and you want to see it again, come on out. Just don't spoil it for us. That's all. Okay, that's that. Hey, Randy. Good to see you. Randy Wallen for $10. Thanks for the super chat. Thanks for supporting Deprogrammed. He says, our happy warriors home. Welcome back, Keri. Thank you very much for the welcome. I am back, getting things straightened up. We're getting ready to start. We're moving into the painting portion of the outside of the house this week. So that's what's happening. I appreciate it, Randy. Okay. So, oh yeah, I see a lot of familiar faces in the chat. So I was kind of, I had something else I planned on talking about today. And then yesterday, there was a second assassination attempt on Trump, President Trump. And it's crazy. Before I get into, we're going to talk about stochastic terrorism today, which is a phrase that the left loves to throw about, to lob at the right, to lob at Trump and Trump supporters, and people who are not even on the right, but just are not part of the woke left, the mainstream left. They lob it at anyone and everyone. We're going to talk about that today, and we're going to talk about how the political violence in this country, primarily, overwhelmingly so, that's been happening the past 8 years or so, it's coming from the left. It's coming from my old cult, my old belief system. The political violence that we've seen from the Steve Scalise shooting to the BLM, the deadly BLM and Antifa riots, the BLM sniper who slaughtered all those Dallas police officers, the 2 assassination attempts on Trump's life just in the past couple months, the murder of Corey Comperatore, the fireman and father who was at Trump's rally. It goes on and on. The political violence is primarily, overwhelmingly so, coming from the left. And yet, because they've done such a great job at capturing the media, celebrities, entertainment, the Democratic Party, my old party, the messaging that we hear, the propaganda that we hear on a daily basis is telling us the opposite. And there are countless pieces they have done about stochastic terrorism coming from Trump. It's coming from the right. Ermiger. It's the exact opposite. And this is the phenomenon called DARVO. We've talked about it on this show before. DARVO, it stands for Deny and Reverse Victim Offender. And it's something you may have heard of it if you are familiar at all with cluster B personality disorders, with people who are called, who are characterized as having narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, which those are the people that we call psychopaths or sociopaths, or histrionic personality disorder. You may have heard DARVO when hearing about those kind of individuals, because it's something they do often when they attack, is they call you the attacker. It's a kind of projection. They accuse you of everything that they do to you. And some of you, unfortunately, may have been through this with an individual, which will hopefully, one silver lining from that is that it gives you greater understanding of it, and you can see it better when it's happening on a large scale in politics, for example. And so the left has been engaging in DARVO and projection for decades now, pointing the finger at the right or anyone they perceive to be a political opponent, anyone who's not part of the cult. The left has been engaging in DARVO and projection and accusing them of being violent, accusing them of stochastic terrorism, accusing them of violent rhetoric. Meanwhile, all of this is actually true of the left themselves. And it's a big part of the reason why I left the woke cult, why I woke up when I did. It's a big part of the reason why a lot of my friends and many of you in the chat who left the left did so. For me, many have heard me tell the story before. If you want a condensed version of it, probably the best 2 interviews you can go watch if it's your first time here and you want to hear the whole story. You can check out the interview I did on trigonometry a few years ago, or you can check out the one I did with Zuby, or most recently the one with Peter Boghossian. And those are 3 sort of if you just want the chunk, the story of what woke me up and how I came to see that the woke cult I was in was not liberal, that's where you should go. But one little piece of that story is that the political violence I was seeing around me in 2016, that was one piece of it. It wasn't the entirety of it, but that was one piece that helped to wake me up. I witnessed, I saw video after video after video on YouTube. I went down a rabbit hole one night of leftists, of people who were supposedly on my side, attacking Trump supporters violently, waiting for Trump supporters outside of his rallies, surrounding them in a mob and egging them, throwing bricks at them, bloodying them, chasing them down the streets. These are at different rallies. It wasn't just one time. And I had no idea this was happening because I was in the woke cult and I was subsisting on a regular and steady diet of mainstream propaganda. And what the mainstream media was telling me is the same thing they're telling everyone today. They were telling me that it was Trump supporters who were violent, that Trump and the right were inciting violence. And I believed this. I believed it without ever realizing that I had not seen videos like that I had not actually seen evidence of that. But I had read a lot of opinion pieces telling me what to believe, right? So when I fell down that rabbit hole and I saw these video after video of violence from the left, from my side, against Trump supporters, it made me cry. It made me very emotional. And then I wanted to see. Then I thought, well, I have to see what the Trump supporters were doing. So I started trying to find those videos, and I could not find them because it was not happening. It was not, the whole story was reversed. Everything I had believed that they had told me was reversed. And that was one of the first large cracks in the foundation of my belief system, in the foundation of my house of belief. And it was shortly after that at a BLM rally in Dallas, Texas, a BLM sniper, killed, was it 6 police officers? And what I saw unfold in my cult, my online cult, which was exclusively woke, social justice people, professionals too, upstanding members of society, people who think they're good people. What I saw was a lot of posts from people celebrating it and saying things like, well, some old white men are going to have to die. Never mind that not all of those cops were old white men, but celebrating it. And while at the same time doing what some of you will recognize, while at the same time denying that it had anything to do with BLM, although it was at a BLM rally, it was a BLM sniper, but they were trying to distance it from BLM, the organization, while also being happy that it happened and celebrating it, the murder of these people. And seeing that endorsement of political violence right after I'd been down this rabbit hole of watching videos of leftist violence. Once again, it was another crack in the foundation of my beliefs. Because at first I wanted to believe this was an aberration. At first I wanted to believe, as you would, right? Imagine that you had been in a cult for 20 years, and you start to notice things. You want the psychological blocks for leaving that cult are so ingrained by this time, and the amount of upheaval to your identity, your sense of self, your place in the world, all of that it's going to require for you to leave that cult is very immense. So there are a lot of incentives not to leave the cult, not to question things. And so at first I was hoping this was an aberration, the political violence I was witnessing on my side, on the left. I was hoping that it was a bug, not a feature. And I remember trying to talk to people about it, and nobody on the left wanted to discuss it, which is kind of what you're seeing today. They want to pretend like it's not happening. They want to bury it in the news cycle like they did the first assassination attempt. They want to memory hole it. And grappling with that political violence, and then coming to understand when Trump won, witnessing the violence that unfolded when he won in 2016. And don't get me wrong, I had not left the cult yet. Even though I'd had these major cracks to the foundation of my belief system, I was still in the woke left. It's a slow process to leave a cult. I was just suddenly, my eyes were open and I was noticing things and I was questioning things. When Trump won, I still cried like everyone else. I wasn't out of the cult yet. I still thought he was a demagogue. But I was trying to be one of the more nuanced voices, right, among my cult. I was trying to say, hey guys, like, this isn't us. We don't want to be violent. And I saw the violence that happened in the streets after he won, perpetrated by who? The left again. And I remember by that time I had moved to Texas, but some friends in LA who talked about that night, how scary it was with the riots in the streets when he won. There was an entire operation of people who, I think it was called J20, of Antifa and leftists, who went to the inauguration specifically to cause terrorism. This is, and I came to realize slowly that this was not a bug of my ideology, of woke ideology. This was a feature. Political violence is a feature. Now, for those of you who were never in the woke left and have always, maybe you studied history when you were younger, you paid close attention to communism, you studied communism and Marxism, and maybe you've always been aware that this is a feature of the left. And so none of this is new to you. But I try to be very aware that there are people on the left who might be watching, and I know this resonates with them. I know this is what their experience is like. I know that many of them, the ones who are still asleep, don't even realize yet that it's a feature. They don't even want to say it's a bug. They don't even want to say, they don't want to pay attention to it at all. So a lot of times I'm talking to them because I'm trying to help them leave that cult. And so I started to realize this was a feature of the left. And that was a big part of me eventually leaving the cult. One of the tenets of social justice ideology, or woke ideology, of my old ideology, and you will have heard this because this ideology, again, has become culturally dominant. It is the mainstream religion today. It's the most popular religion in the West today. And so you've heard a lot of these things now. But back when I first heard them, back when I was getting indoctrinated, these were not mainstream things. I was getting pumped full of it at Duke University. That's where I was being indoctrinated into woke. And the stuff that I was reading, when I mentioned earlier that I didn't study communism or Marxism, that's true. I didn't study it. In my courses, we weren't looking at it from a critical lens. I was being indoctrinated into it. So as part of my women's studies minor at Duke, I was taking critical race theory classes. I was taking queer theory classes and women's studies, which is now called gender studies. And all of those things I now understand are outgrowths of critical theory. They're outgrowths of Marxism itself. We were reading Marxist writers, but we were not reading Marxist writers to critique them. We were reading Marxist writers to assimilate to their beliefs. And hold on, let me just read this. Let me take a quick break in this story. Inigo Montoya for $5. First of all, sir, what a great username and profile pic. I love it. For $5, thank you for supporting Deprogrammed. He says, you keep using that word stochastic. I do not think it means what you think it means, lefties. That's a great Princess Bride reference. Thank you so much, sir. Hold on. Okay, I appreciate it. So one of the things, let me get back on track. So when I was at Duke and I was being indoctrinated into this identity Marxism of woke, of social justice, one of the things we learned, and now to get back to my point, you will have heard this because now the ideology has gone mainstream, right? They teach a core tenet is that speech is violence or harm. Speech is violence, and violence is speech. There is a purposeful attempt to conflate the two things. And you will see this tenet of the belief system. You will see it in all kinds of things. You will see it in their signs when you go to their protests and you see them marching with these signs that say, silence is violence. No, it's not. Silence, speech or lack thereof is not violence. But they try and push this idea. They try and conflate the two. You will also see it in all of the many condemnations that they issue, the politicians, the schools, the universities, when they put out these statements and they talk about harmful rhetoric. And most of the time when you're like, well, what rhetoric are you actually talking about? Can you give me a quote? And you look at the quote, it's like, well, that's just a different opinion. That's not harmful rhetoric. That's not violence. That's a different opinion. It's fascinating. So they've purposefully tried to conflate speech with violence and violence with speech to confuse it in the minds of young people in culture. So what do you think happens if you have an ideology like that become culturally dominant? Do you think it's possible that you in an ideology where they say there's no difference between opinions and violence, that you might start to see a lot of actual violence? Yes, you might, because they view it as just no different than expressing their opinion. This is all a result. All of this political violence that we're seeing on the left that's been growing for decades. Even these 2 assassination attempts and the murder of Corey Comperatore, all of this is a result of social justice ideology, of woke ideology becoming the most popular religion in the United States. And certainly the official religion now of the Democratic Party, which has ceased to be liberal. It's become woke instead. Woke is very illiberal, believes in censorship, believes in political violence, believes in racism and sexism. This is all the result of this ideology that I was in, going mainstream, and people adopting it and not even realizing. I'm sure a lot of them think they're atheist, or maybe they think they're Christian, or maybe they think they're Muslim, or maybe they think they're agnostic. But if they're woke, they're none of those things. You can only serve one master. This ideology, if you believe in it, if you subscribe to it, it becomes your master. It becomes your dominant faith. It takes priority over whatever other faith you think you have. We're going to look at some, don't worry, I have a lot of things queued up to talk about with the assassination and the stochastic terrorism that they're always accusing the right of. And so we're going to go through it. I just want to thank one more person. Oh, Gen X marks the spot for $5. I thought it was you, girl, because I just saw your text today. This is Tracy. You guys may know Gen X marks the spot as Keto and Crime. Tracy's rebranded her channel. I haven't had a chance to check it out since the rebranding, but the focus is, as I understand it, Tracy is going to be changing a little bit, less keto and not just true crime, a lot of different kinds of topics. And so go check it out. It's Gen X marks the spot. And I appreciate the super chat, Tracy. She says, only one side is violent. Sure, we get verbally cheeky, but we don't kill or hurt people. Hey, Keri, it's Tracy. I know it's you. Yeah, they are actually violent. But they spend a whole lot of time talking about the violence from the right. Look at how they sort of turned January 6th into some sacred day of remembrance. Look at how they try and equate it to something horrific like September 11th, which resulted in the deaths of so many people. People didn't go on January 6th to the Capitol to have an insurrection. This is horse manure. If you're on the left and you've bought into this propaganda, I'm sorry, you are brainwashed. People didn't go. These are people on the right, okay? They're gun owners. They didn't take their guns. They didn't take weapons. They went there to protest the theft of the election. They went there to protest. And the Capitol Guards opened the doors for them. If you haven't watched all the footage that was eventually released that they did not want to release, but they eventually had to, there's hours and hours of it. You can see them opening doors. You can see them escorting the shaman around. Why'd they do that, huh? Why were, out of all the people that they've thrown in prison from January 6th, why are there a couple of key people caught on video urging people to go inside? One of them being right-wing groiper anti-Semite Nick Fuentes, urging people to go inside. Why were those people not thrown in jail? Kind of funny, right? Why wasn't he thrown in jail? Who's the other guy? Ray Epps. What happened to him? Leftists don't know a lot of this. They don't follow the actual news. They follow what's called the mainstream news. They follow the propaganda, but they don't actually seek out what's happening. They don't go to source material. They don't watch footage from the Capitol. They don't do things like that. You will hear the sociopath politicians constantly refer to that as a deadly day. Really? None of the January 6th people killed anyone. Not a single person killed anyone. Do you know why it was deadly? Because a Capitol police officer killed one of the protesters. That's why it's deadly. Not a single protester there, regardless of what you think about them going into the Capitol or should they have stayed outside. Leftists, you guys bang on the doors and storm official congressional meetings all the time. There's footage of you guys doing that. I'm not saying I clearly was not a part of it. I did not want to go there. But to ask me to believe that that was a violent insurrection, they didn't kill a single person. They didn't take weapons. To ask me to believe that is asking me to lie to myself and to reject all evidence. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not in your cult anymore. Okay, but look at what they've done to that. Everybody knows that date, January 6th. Everyone knows that. You can't forget that date if you wanted to. They've turned it into practically, a memorial. It's a national holiday now where they mourn and weep. Do you know the day that Trump was the first assassination attempt on Trump's life? Did the media do the same thing with that? Did the politicians do the same thing with that? Did they turn that into a never forget? It's July 13th, by the way. Did they turn it into that? Is everybody like July 13th? No, they didn't do that. If it had happened to a Democrat, if it was the July 13th, when an assassin incited by the left, by their political rhetoric, by the politicians, by the celebrities, by the media, when an assassin, a would-be assassin, shot the president, failed to kill him, but shot him, and killed a father and fireman, Corey Comperatore. When that happened, they memory hold it. It was as if it wasn't a big deal. If that had happened to Kamala Harris or to Biden, the news cycle on that, from that shooting in July, it would not have ended. it would still be going on. You would hear about it constantly. It would have been brought up constantly in the debate instead of shushed the way it was when Trump brought it up, shut down, right? It would have been the topic of the questions the moderators asked if it had been an assassin who shot Kamala Harris. They would have probably, given how they are anti-democratic, I'm talking about the Democratic Party, they're anti-democratic. If you don't believe me, ask yourself, leftists, you guys just let them appoint your nominee for you. You didn't even insist on an election. Your own party, my old party, just ran a coup. They ran a coup on your nominee and selected a different nominee, and you guys were cool with it. That's pretty incredible. Given that they don't really care about the vote or the will of the people, if this assassination attempt had happened to Kamala Harris, I believe, like some have been saying, they would have probably suspended the election. It's too unsafe. We can't have her on the campaign trail. We're just going to suspend the election and keep her in office. Oh, but Biden's not competent, which is weird because who's running the country right now, right? Do you leftists ever wonder that? I'm not convinced you do. I'm not convinced you do wonder. Isn't it strange? He's not competent. They finally, after lying to you and gaslighting you for 3 years, the whole media, which ran, carried water for him, ran cover for him, the media, which would slap down any attempts and to talk about his cognitive decline. They suddenly started playing these old clips of his cognitive decline. They suddenly went in on him in June. Why do you think they did that? It's interesting, right? They would have just said, I think, if it had happened to Kamala, it's too unsafe to have an election. We're just gonna, what would they have said? You're like, that could never happen in America. Really? Do you know what else could never happen in America? The government telling you can't leave your house and go to work. The government forcing you to put masks on your children. It's an emergency, they said. We have to just suspend democracy to save democracy. That's what they do. That's what they say. They would have said, we can't have an election right now. Kamala's president for the time being. Like, that's what they would have done. But with Trump, they don't even, it's like it didn't even happen. Or it happened and it's his fault that it happened. And let's move on. This is the story they tell. That it's his fault. I'm looking for this thing I want to read you that I absolutely agree with. And this is about the first assassination attempt. So I read this. I think this was posted. It was posted before. It was posted the day before. So on Saturday, I think, before the second assassination attempt. And it was Sean Davis. Here, let me share this. This is from September 14th. Isn't he with the Babylon? No, he's with the Federalists. Sean Davis. He said Trump got shot in the head by an assassin who was ignored by the Secret Service. The FBI director lied to Congress and claimed he didn't know if Trump had even been shot. And we still know next to nothing about the shooter or who he was talking to ahead of the shooting. Isn't that insane? Can you imagine? And then Sean Parnell had a great follow-up point. He said, in 48 hours after Reagan was shot, America knew everything there was to know about Hinckley in an era where there was far less information available to the public. There was no internet, no smartphones, no cable news. Yet we know next to nothing about Trump's assassination attempt. It's ridiculous. It's weird. It's almost like the Vegas shooting, right? It's almost like the Vegas shooting. We know nothing. Very strange. Let's bring up the definition of stochastic terrorism. Now, it's almost exclusively the left who's been using this term. They've been using it the same way they put out their propaganda. There are other terms that are in the woke lexicon, the woke dictionary. The way that they, what was it we looked for a couple weeks ago? Joy. Remember that? The joy psyop? And it was every single news organization, hundreds of them all on the same day, headlines about how Kamala has joy, but Trump is dark. Kamala, joy, 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 Kamala, joy, Kamala. We watched clips of newscasters, joy, joy. They all got the joy memo. They all got their marching orders. The regime media. They do the same thing with other phrases. You've seen these happen. We've covered them on the show, where all of a sudden on the same day, they're all doing headlines about white Christian nationalism, white Christian nationalism, white Christian nationalism everywhere. Well, for a while there, they were all doing headlines about stochastic terrorism. Trump's a stochastic terrorist. So let's read. I like to go to Wikipedia because leftists love Wikipedia, and I want them, if they're watching, to not commit a genetic fallacy and say, I don't like this source, goodbye. So let's read their definition. Here we go. Stochastic terrorism is a political violence that has been instigated by hostile public rhetoric that is directed at a group or an individual. Unlike incitement to terrorism, and that's where you say, you're inciting it. You're saying, go and do this terror. You're telling other people to do it. Unlike incitement to terrorism, stochastic terrorism is accomplished by using indirect, vague, or coded language that allows the instigator to plausibly disclaim responsibility for the resulting violence. A key element is the use of social media and other distributed forms of communications where the person who carries out the violence has no direct connection to the users of the violent rhetoric. Violent rhetoric? Okay. Violent. Little asterisk here. Yesterday, before the second assassination attempt from the left, the second leftist assassination attempt on Trump's life, before that happened, I was watching the media, news clip after news clip, accusing Trump and J.D. Vance of violent rhetoric against immigrants, against Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, and going even a step further and saying that their rhetoric was the reason for some nut jobs making bomb threats in Ohio, in Springfield, Ohio, and saying it was the reason. It's very strange, don't you think, leftists, given how you like to blame any random nut jobs actions on Trump, that you never do the same with Democratic politicians or celebrities or media. How is it that Trump and J.D. Vance are somehow responsible for bomb threats that happened in Springfield, Ohio, but Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and the media are not responsible for these assassination attempts on Trump's life? How do you walk around in life with that much of a self-deception, with that much hypocrisy, with that much blindness that you can't even see that you do that? Self-deception. A lot of you lie to yourselves, not just to us. You lie to yourselves. No wonder so many of you are on medications, or you self-medicate with drugs and alcohol and sex. No wonder so many of you spend so much time online posting about all of your mental health problems, your misery, your anger. I say this because I think those things come from sometimes come from a place of not living honestly or authentically. You're walking around in this self-deception. I used to be in this self-deception. I was in your cult for 20 years. I know the things of which I speak. You lie to yourselves. And how do you have respect for yourself when you do that? Because on some level, on some deep level, you know what you're doing. That's why you have that background anxiety a lot of you have. That's why you're not comfortable having discussions with people who disagree with you, even though you think of yourself as open-minded, but you're not, and you know that deep down. And you can't have conversations with people like me. It makes you very uncomfortable. You get very angry when somebody has a different opinion. You find reasons not to have the conversation by name calling or insulting or being so overbearingly rude that, who would want to continue talking to you? You accuse people of things that they're not. You engage in ad hominems, all because you have such deep anxiety, because deep down, you can't defend your positions, and your positions contradict one another, and you're a hypocrite, and you haven't done the work to hold a lot of the opinions that you say these are my opinions. They're not. And that someone gave them to you. I'm just going to show you a couple of quick headlines about Donald Trump and stochastic terrorism. Here's one from a paper in Arizona Central. Donald Trump, Keri Lake, and others invent a whole new kind of terrorism. This is when stochastic terrorism was like trending, talking about Trump. Opinion. There's a term for politicians like Donald Trump and Keri Lake who vilify others in a way that could lead to violence, but also allows plausible deniability. And this is a whole article about how he's a stochastic terrorist. Here it is. This has a term: stochastic terrorism. Here's another one. Mother Jones. Trump is inciting violence as the election approaches. How his latest migrant bashing, lies about the FBI, and other verbal attacks could lead to bloodshed. You know whose lies and bashing and hate and rhetoric has led to bloodshed? Yours. The left. Over and over again has it led to bloodshed. The BLM, the deadly BLM and Antifa riots, the Steve Scalise shooting, 2 assassination attempts on Trump, the murder of Corey Comperatore. Over and over and over again, your rhetoric has led to bloodshed, and the reason you don't stop it is because that's what you want. That's what, and if you're a random leftist and you're listening to this going, that's not what I want, I don't agree with that, but that's what your leaders want. That's what your puppeteers want. The people controlling the cult you're in, that's what they want. That's what the media wants. That's what the politicians want. That's what the celebrities, a lot of them want. They want the bloodshed. Here's another one. It's from Slate. The most dangerous time in 2024 will be just after the election. Starts off, first sentence, the term stochastic terror became a big part of American political discourse following the attempt to undo the 2020 presidential election by way of mob violence. Mob violence. They were there to protest mob violence. What was the violence? Who did they kill? Who did the people on January 6th kill? Who? No one. What did I tell you about how they've turned January 6th into this crazy, weird, false holiday that they put on the same level as September 11th? Meanwhile, they don't mark the dates where they've committed violence, where they've killed people. What's his name? David Dorn? I'm trying to think. There have been so many people that were killed in those BLM riots. Yeah, David Dorn, a black man, police officer who was killed during the BLM riots following the murder of George Floyd. They don't mark the day that David Dorn was murdered. Why? Because he was murdered by the left. Those are just a sampling of the headlines about stochastic terrorism, supposedly from Trump and Trump voters. Do you think that? Oh, look, wait, there's one more I got to show you. Mother Jones they did two. I'm sure they did more than two, but there were two that I was looking at. Look at this one. This is another Mother Jones headline. Donald Trump, stochastic terrorist by David Korn. Look at his first sentence. If you're not familiar with the term stochastic terrorism, now's a good time to bone up. For the leading Republican candidate, that's Trump, is a stochastic terrorist. That's what he says. He calls Trump a stochastic terrorist. You know what this is? This right here is stochastic terrorism. This is implied and vague incitement to violence. You are telling people, and if you tell them enough, and as often as you guys do, as the media does and the politicians do, that he is a Nazi, that all these false things you say about him, that he's Hitler, that he's going to end democracy. Democracy's on the line. Democracy's on the ballot. He's going to end the world as we know it. You call him a terrorist. You call him a stochastic terrorist. You know that several nut jobs are going to try to kill him. And we have seen that bear out. The very thing you want. Look at the lack of just blinding, blinding their inability to even see that the words they are writing are about themselves. Now, for some of them, this is as straight out. I don't know about David Korn, but for some of them, possibly David Korn, this is just absolute dishonesty. They are sociopaths. For a lot of the politicians in the media, they are sociopaths and narcissists. They are cluster B people. They know they're engaging in lying. They don't care. But for some of them, I suspect, they're not even aware that they're lying. They're not even aware that they're describing themselves. They're completely blinded. Look at what he says. Stochastic terrorism is defined by conflict and law enforcement experts as, quote, the demonization of a foe so that he, she, or they might become targets of violence. Does that not describe what you guys have done to President Trump and to the right, to Trump voters in general? The demonization of a foe so that he, she, or they might become targets of violence. Well, in Trump's case, it has worked. It's not might become. You guys have demonized him to such an extent that he has become the target of 2 attempted assassinations. It continues. Dehumanizing and vilifying a person or group of people can provoke. Oh, look, by the way, Scientific American gave this quote here. And I saw just before we started that Scientific American, they are engaging in stochastic terrorism by endorsing Kamala and talking about how dangerous Trump is. They actually released a statement, Scientific American, for only the second time in our 179-year history, the editors of Scientific American are endorsing a candidate for president. And they go on to engage in being part of this problem that they so eloquently define here, demonizing someone, demonizing Trump. Here's how they defined it, Scientific American. Quote, dehumanizing and vilifying a person or group of people can provoke what scholars and law enforcement officials call stochastic terrorism, in which ideologically driven hate speech increases the likelihood that people will violently and unpredictably attack the targets of the vicious claims. Whoa. At its core, stochastic terrorism exploits one of our strongest and most complicated emotions, disgust. Wow! Does any of this sound like what they feel about Trump, what they say about Trump, what they say about us? Any of it? Disgust? They seem pretty disgusted with him. They outright say they're disgusted with him. They outright say, if you've been online like I have since the assassination attempt, reading all the stuff they're saying, there are professional, respectable leftists out there saying they're sorry that the assassin missed. That sounds like a lot of disgust, right? They're out there posting their murderous wishes, their violent fantasies, their darkness. Dehumanizing and vilifying a person or group of people like Trump voters, can provoke what scholars and law enforcement officials call stochastic terrorism, in which ideologically driven hate speech, like the hate speech they do about Trump and about Trump voters, increases the likelihood that people will violently and unpredictably attack the targets, like Trump, of those vicious claims. They don't even hear it. They don't even hear it, some of them, that they are accurately 100% describing themselves. I want to continue because this is so uncanny how this is completely describing them, and they're the ones writing it. In addition to disgust, fear, and hatred can work. Oh, do you think hatred of Trump can work too? And fear? Do you think that the media, that the politicians like Biden and Kamala, do you think they're at all responsible for stoking ridiculous fear about Trump? There are leftists on Reddit who seriously believe that, first of all, because of the media and politicians, they believe things that are factually untrue, completely baseless, crazy. They believe that Project 2025 is his agenda, which it's not. He's got his own agenda, Agenda 47. They believe that Project 2025, this is where all the funny memes came from, of all the crazy stuff that would happen under Project 2025. They believe there are things in, even if it were his agenda, which it's not, they believe that there's like a full abortion ban in there. There's not. They believe all this stuff that, because they won't read source material. They just listen to what these sociopaths at the top of their cult tell them. At the top of my old cult, I did the same. There are leftists right now who believe, I saw this yesterday. They were talking about, if Trump wins, women are going to lose their rights. Kamala Harris wants women to have the same rights as men. Excuse me. What rights do we women not have that men supposedly have? What rights are those? Is it the right to be conscripted into the military? Oh, oh, maybe we don't want that one, do we? The draft for women. There are people who have this fear that if Trump wins, it's going to be like The Handmaid's Tale. There are some people who believe this stuff. It's on level with QAnon stuff. They believe he's going to put gay people. They believed this before the 2016 election. I was never that far gone. I was like, he's not going to put people in camps. That's retarded. So, what? I didn't believe that part of it. But there were people who believed that he's going to put gay people in camps. Oh my gosh. The media and politicians have done this to their cult on the left. They have put this fear in people, this crazy fear. They lie to them constantly. Look at the debate. Look how many times Kamala lied. She stood up there and bald-faced lied, saying Trump was going to do a national abortion ban. which is not true. Like that, just flat out just said things that are not true. She repeated the very fine people Charlottesville lie, knowing it. She knows that's a lie. That's not like an accident. There's no way that can't be an accident. And leftists, if you don't know why, I guess I should clip the portion where I've covered that before, but there's no accident there. She puts this fear and hatred and disgust in people. In addition to the disgust, fear and hatred can work. The point being to depict a person or set of people as loathsome, like they do Trump, as a loathsome other, undeserving of respect or acceptance. Does that sound like what they've done to Trump and Trump voters? And a dangerous threat. A dangerous threat? What if they've been telling us Trump is a dangerous threat and they still don't see it? They still don't see that this is what they do. They make him a dangerous threat so that people will target him for political violence, so that people on the left will attack him. Establishing such a framework boosts the odds that a lone individual group will violently assault the deprecated. Then they go on to give examples of how they think the right is doing this. Isn't that funny? Do they have any examples of how the left is doing this against Trump? No. No. I wonder where these assassination attempts are coming from. It couldn't be stochastic terrorism, could it? Look at this article from the Drexel Law Review. Ending the right's reign of stochastic terror. Oh my gosh. I'm going to take a little break here. I've got some more stuff pulled up I want to show you. Just a quick break. I appreciate you super chatters, and I know sometimes I get carried away on a rant, but I want to say thank you. Thank you, Randy, for the $10 super chat. He says, Booth, pro-slavery Southern Democrat. Sirhan, Israel-hating Palestinian. Oswald, communist. Union violence, Democrat supporting orgs. Don't forget the KKK, the paramilitary arm of the Southern Democrats. Oh, I see what he's talking about. Assassins there. John Wilkes Booth. I see. Don't forget the KKK. The left doesn't even know that. Isn't that incredible? And I know this for a fact. When I was in the leftist cult, it's not common knowledge that the KKK were like Democrats. It's not common knowledge. And when people do tell it to you, you immediately say, well, the party switched. Like, what does that mean? And then you forget it. That's what happens. And then you just throw that little fact away. Thank you, Randy. CJ for $5. Thank you, CJ, for supporting Deprogrammed. He says, if they make you out to be the bad guy, then any evil action they take against you is justified. Classic playbook of abusers. Absolutely. Absolutely. And CJ, I know this from personal experience, from having dealt with a couple of bad guys, of cluster B type abusers who try to make you out to be the bad guy. So I hope you haven't dealt with that. But like I said, one silver lining is that if you've been through that with someone who's done that to you and you're like, what is going on? This person's not normal. Like, what are they doing? Like, it will help you over time start to see it and understand it better on a large scale. Because it's the same playbook. You're exactly right. Classic playbook of abusers. Randy Wallen for $10. Thank you, Randy. Says the left goes out of its way to chum for monsters. They set the stage and inflame emotions, knowing that there are emotionally unhinged people who will carry out the evil deeds. They know, yes, they know this. They do all the things, Randy, that they're saying, like in that Mother Jones article that the right does. It's incredible. And then Randy also for $5 says the left knows what they are saying and doing. They are not confused, ignored, or misunderstood. They are evil. I agree with you. as a whole, the left, the woke left, this identity Marxist left, yes, I agree with you. And certainly for the leaders. One caveat I will make is that not everyone who's in it, they might be doing the work of evil, but not everyone who's in it is evil. And I know that because I was in it. And I know that because there are other people in the chat and friends of mine who were in it and who left it. And there are people in it who can be reached. And so that's why I do the show. But you're right. As a whole, yes, it is evil. And they are wrapped up in an evil ideology and they are doing the work of evil. And they have given a part of themselves over to evil, whether they consciously recognize that and understand it or not. Darkwater says they certainly all got the stochastic terrorism memo. Yeah, they did. They were all doing articles about it. Not now. They were all doing articles about it related to Trump and how he's a stochastic terrorist. And, are they doing that now? No. Okay, I want to show you this. So before the assassination attempt yesterday, I was watching, like I said, a couple of mainstream regime media, leftist media propaganda pieces. And I was watching ones where they were holding Trump and JD Vance responsible for bomb threats in Ohio. And it just so happened that right after I watched this, then there's the assassination attempt. And, the question goes through your mind, are they going to hold Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and Joe Biden responsible for these assassination attempts? Of course they're not. They don't apply their standards equally. Of course not. They're raging hypocrites. That's never going to happen. But here, watch this. I just want to show you as an example. Now, if you're on the left, try and have an open mind, that open mind that you think you have. And watch this with me for a second and bear with me. Okay. So this is JD Vance on CNN with Dana Bash. And I like what Cernovich said about it. He said, when a 105 IQer meets world-class talent, sometimes people are hyperbolic about that. And in this case, I don't think he is. I think what he's talking about is obvious here. She is boxing in the wrong weight class. But let's go. Here we go.
And to protect them. Kamala Harris opened the border, and now these people are suffering. That's what I'm focused on, Dana.
Senator, I have to go through several things that you just said. First of all, the Clark County Sheriff and the Ohio Department of Natural Resources reviewed 11 months of 911 calls. They only identified 2 instances of people alleging Haitians were taking geese out of parks. They found zero evidence to substantiate those claims. Also, other evidence that you have talked about, even you've retweeted, alleged evidence, are unsourced social media.
Sorry, I paused it. So I was saying that she, at least she's admitting that they got 2 reports, okay, of this, and instead of pretending like there are no reports at all. And that's not even counting the reports that JD Vance's office was getting, or the videos that people were posting on social media and that some of us have seen. I'm sure you've seen some of it. Sorry, I muted myself, you guys. I gotta stop doing that. So at least she's admitting that there were reports, which is all JD Vance and Trump were saying. There have been reports of this. There have also been videos. I've seen one. I've seen 2, actually.
To substantiate those claims. Also, other evidence that you have talked about, even you've retweeted, alleged evidence, are unsourced social media videos from a different city, apparently no connection to Haitians. And this is from a conservative activist who offered a $5,000 reward for such things. And then going just backly to the schools and the hospitals and so forth being overwhelmed, nobody is disputing that
that video, by the way, she's talking about is the one that Chris Rufo found and it's from Dayton, which is like 25-minute drive away. It's right next door to Springfield, and it is cats on a barbecue. And they also did follow-up investigative journalism where they went to the house and confirmed a lot of the things they saw in the video and talked with the immigrants there themselves about their neighbors. You can go and read their whole report. You can watch the video, and then you can come back to this and go, this is kind of weird that she's nitpicking that it was in Dayton and not Springfield, and and it was like this, maybe not a Haitian immigrant, maybe an African immigrant in this case. Okay, it doesn't invalidate anything that people are saying, which is that immigrants are eating pets, which is freaking disturbing.
The town of Springfield, Ohio needs help, but you're not just a bystander, you're the senator from Ohio. So instead of saying things that are wrong and actually causing the hospitals, the schools, the government buildings to be evacuated because of bomb threats, because
boom, let's stop right there. She just said that by him repeating what he heard, the reports he got, that he caused, she used the word causing bomb threats, causing the schools and hospitals to be evacuated because of bomb threats, causing these bomb threats and these evacuations. She just laid this at his feet. Weird. Are you gonna have Kamala Harris on now, Dana, and ask her about her violent rhetoric about Trump and how he's going to end democracy as we know it, and how that violent rhetoric is causing the assassination attempts? Are you going to do that? I don't think you are.
Because of the cats and dogs thing, why not actually be constructive in helping to better integrate them into the community? Because there are a lot of employers there who say that the Haitian workers are helping fill jobs that they need desperately filled.
Dana, first of all, let me just respond to a couple of things that you said, but I want to start with something you said, which I think is frankly disgusting and is more appropriate for a Democratic propagandist than it is for an American journalist. There is nothing that I have said that has led to threats against these hospitals. These hospitals, the bomb threats and so forth, Did
you see her? Let me just look at this body language. Look at what she's telling the viewer with this body language here, the nonverbal body language. When he says there's nothing I have said to cause this, she does one of these. Like, really? That's what she's doing.
But I want to start with something you said, which I think is frankly disgusting and is more appropriate for a Democratic propagandist than it is for an American journalist. There is nothing that I have said that has led to threats against these hospitals. These hospitals, the bomb threats and so forth, it's disgusting. The violence is disgusting. We condemn it. We condemn all violence.
Senator, this happened after you and President Trump were on the debate stage, said that cats and dogs.
Do you see how she's interrupting him and arguing with him? Not like a journalist, but like a propagandist, like he said. She is trying to insist and speak over him and say, these bomb threats happened after you said something about cats. Therefore, you're responsible for bomb threats at a hospital. Would she interrupt Kamala Harris and go, excuse me, Madam Vice President, excuse me, these assassination attempts happened right after you said that Trump would end democracy as we know it, that Trump was a dangerous threat to America? Do you think she would do that? No. Leftists, be honest with yourself. If you consider yourself a liberal, I've got several friends in mind right now who keep coming at me on Facebook. If you consider yourself a liberal, be honest with yourself. Respect yourself enough. Holy crap, man. She would not do this about something on a much higher, crazier, violent level. And by the way, Helena has a great point. I wonder who made the bomb threats. Yeah, I wonder too. I think it's a leftist. My personal opinion.
You asked a question, Dana, and I'm
going to go back.
Small violence.
Senator, this happened after you and President Trump were on the debate stage, said that cats and dogs were being eaten.
You asked a question, Dana, and I'm going to go ahead and answer it. What we have said is that this town has suffered terribly under the policies of Kamala Harris. Now, you just accused me of inciting violence against the community when all that I've done is surface the complaints of my constituents, people who are suffering because of Kamala Harris's policies. Are we not allowed to talk about these problems because some psychopaths are threatening violence? We can condemn the violence on the one hand, but also talk about the terrible consequences of Kamala Harris's open border on the other hand. Now, let me just fact check a couple of other things that you said, Dana, because it's important. You said that all of these migrants are in the country legally. They are in the country through what's called temporary protective status.
Right.
That is when Kamala Harris waved a magic amnesty wand, taking people and giving them legal status. That is not to say that they're here legally. That is a terrible indictment of her amnesty policies that have further opened the border and further
caused not illegal.
terrible migration into this country.
You might not agree with the policy, and obviously you don't, which is totally fair and legitimate. There are policy disagreements all the time, but the fact is that it is the law because President Biden and Vice President Harris are. But I don't want to frankly go down this conversation about policy
Dana,
because
you made a point. You don't. I agree. You don't want to talk about policy.
No,
Dana,
what I want to talk about
instead of about the fact,
Senator,
that
it was
Harris,
your
Dana,
distraction.
Granted amnesty.
You were the one who started talking about eating dogs and cats.
Level.
You were the one who
Dana,
brought this
my
up.
constituents
The president
were the
said
ones
it to
who talked
60
about eating
million
dog and
people.
cats, and I talked about it because you were ignoring this community. My constituents talked about it.
Have you been
it's
to
my
Springfield?
responsibility to surface their concerns when the American media
Have you been to
ignores it.
Springfield?
Dana, I've been to Springfield probably 100 times in my life.
How about
I've taken
recently,
my children
since
to
you've
get
heard
ice
this?
cream at Young's Jersey Dairy.
Have you heard recently since you've gotten these calls?
Have I been in the last 4 days?
No,
I'm
talking
haven't been
about
in the last 4 days, but I've
since
talked
you've
to a lot
gotten
of
these
people
calls
in
from the
Springfield,
constituents.
Dana, and they're telling me this stuff is happening. Dana, would you like to ask me questions and then let me answer them, or would you like to debate me on these topics? I noticed that when you had Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, you gave them multiple choice answers to the questions that you asked, and you allowed them to answer the questions. I'm happy to be here to talk about policy, but if you're going to interrupt me every single time that I open my mouth, then why am I even doing this? So please ask a question, and I'd ask you to be polite enough to let me answer it.
Yes, I am, and I think that if Kamala,
look how stupid this woman is. Look, it's always, sometimes it's not evident until you have like a mid IQ, mid-wit person next to an actually very intelligent person like JD Vance. But when you have them side by side, you can't help but observe it, except for the mid-wits. They don't notice. But he's just, articulate. He's got his points. He's very calm, and she's stumbling around and argumentative and talking over him and can't make a complete sentence. And it's just the difference is right next to each other is very noticeable. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing that. I had to show you that because I had just watched that. I had just watched her repeatedly try to blame JD Vance and Trump for these alleged bomb threats that happened in Ohio that they knew nothing about, and they have no evidence. They don't even know who phoned these bomb threats in. They don't even know that it was a follower or supporter of Trump or JD Vance. They don't even know that it wasn't a leftist who did it to say so they could run with this narrative, right? Which happens as well. Could it be someone who follows Trump and Vance? Sure. Could it be someone who follows Kamala and wants to have this in the news, that there were bomb threats, that a right-winger called in bomb threats? Yeah, it could be that too. They know nothing, and yet they're on here pinning this on them. And even if it were a follower of Trump and Vance, some nut job who follows them, it's a nut job. Either way. But she's here saying they're responsible for what this nut job did, for talking about reports that they got and that we saw on social media about immigrants eating pets, that they're responsible for these bomb threats. Would she do that? Is she gonna have Kamala on now and say, I want you to disavow the assassination attempts? No, that would be the first question. As someone said in the chat, the first question they'd be asking Trump. Look at the Charlottesville hoax, the Charlottesville lie that I mentioned before, where he said, Trump supposedly said that Nazis were very fine people. No, he didn't. We went through the whole transcript. You can go through it yourself. I've got it. I'll clip it. I've already done it. but we watched the videos, we read the transcript. He never said that. He said the exact opposite. And he had to say it over and over and over again because they kept saying, will you disavow white nationalists? And he's like, yes, I already did. Yes, of course, I disavow them. They never asked Kamala. I don't know. They never ask Kami to disavow the assassination attempts, to disavow the political violence of the left, to disavow the BLM and Antifa murders, the deadly riots. They never do that. I've got another thing I want to show you here. Let me just pull this up. Oh, man. Okay. So many things that were interesting today. Here's one. This is a clip of Kamala Harris joking about killing Trump on the Ellen show. Because again, they've got their regime media, they've got their regime celebrities. They're all a part of the establishment together. Watch how Ellen sets her up for this.
If you had to be stuck in an elevator with either President Trump, Mike Pence, or Jeff Sessions, who would it be?
Does one of us have to come out alive?
So funny. Right? It's not that I think that kind of humor is, shouldn't be allowed or it's not funny or whatever. It's just their double standard. And if you're on the left, I'm going to ask you again to try and be honest with yourself. If that were Trump, which it would never be, because the regime media is all lined up, the regime, the establishment's against him. But if that were Trump and he made that remark about her, would it be treated the same way as just a joke? No, it would not. There would be article after article about it. Trump just threatened to kill Kamala Harris. Like, it would just be constant. Now, not only, given that the left, the regime media, the celebrities, the politicians, given that they've spent so much time talking about stochastic terrorism and defining exactly what they're doing, right? Without admitting that's what they're doing. They've spent so much time talking about it. You would think that today, after the second assassination attempt, they didn't do it after the first, but maybe after the second assassination attempt, that they would be writing articles saying, oh my goodness, there's a lot of stochastic terrorism here on the left. No, of course they're not. They're not doing that. What are they doing? They're blaming Trump. They're blaming the victim. It's akin to saying when a woman gets raped, but look at that skirt you were wearing, right? They're blaming the victim. They're saying, Trump, guess who's responsible for Trump's assassination attempt? Trump is. It would be laughable. If we saw this in a movie, it would be darkly funny and just over the top. But this is real life that they're doing this. So here, let me just show you a few of these things. This is Jack Posobiec grabbed this Politico headline. Quote, this is the headline: Republicans outraged over possible. First of all, they keep putting that word possible in there to try and sow doubt in their cult. That's part of propaganda too. They're massaging this language. They're putting them into the mind. They're making their cult doubt as if it even was an assassination attempt, right? Just like they did with the first one. Republicans outraged over possible assassination attempt. Quote, they're going to keep trying to kill Trump. Look at this one. Sean Davis quote tweeted this one. He says, one of the largest papers in Ohio which is owned and run by Gannett, the parent company of USA Today, says that Trump deserves to be assassinated and that it's his own fault that Democrats want to murder him. Again, it's like you have to laugh because it's so insane. It's so darkly ridiculous. Again, it would be funny in a movie, but this is really happening. Here's how they promoted their article. They put out a link to it and they said, opinion. There is no place in politics for violence. That said, it's almost like a but, right? Where you put a but in a sentence and then you invalidate everything that came before it. There's no place in politics for violence, but the former president, Donald Trump, brings a lot of this stuff on himself. It's his fault. It's his fault people are trying to kill him. That's what they're saying. That's what the left is saying. Here's that article. There's no place for violence in politics. Trump's lies and rhetoric must stop. What? They tried to kill him again. It's his lies and his rhetoric that must stop. Are you freaking kidding me? You couldn't spare a Kamala in there. Kamala's lies and rhetoric about Trump must stop. Her violent rhetoric and her lies, her outright bald-faced lies, provable lies must stop. Like the Charlottesville lie, like the abortion ban lie, like democracy's going to end lie, like her bloodshed lie where she said in the debate, she lied and told people that this has become one of their big lies lately. They repeat this one a lot, that he said if he doesn't win, there's going to be bloodshed. He said there'll be bloodshed in the auto industry. If you elect Kamala or Biden, there will be. They know what they're doing when they use that language that way. They know what they're doing when they know they are lying. This article is just incredible. There's no place for violence in politics. Trump's lies and rhetoric must stop. When Donald Trump continues to lie about losing the 2020 election and legal immigrants in Springfield, he brings the crazies out. And one of those crazies tried to shoot him. He brings the crazies out, not the left. He does. Oh my gosh. There is no place in politics for violence. That said, the former president, Donald Trump, brings a lot of this stuff on himself. When he continues to push lies about legal immigrants like the ones in Springfield, Ohio. What lies did he push? He said there have been reports of them eating the dogs and cats, and there have been videos, and we have watched them. And even Dana Bush admitted there were reports, too, that went to the officials she talked with. There were others that went to J.D. Vance. There were others online. When he continues to push lies about legal immigrants like the ones in Springfield, Ohio, he continues to insist he was not. And look what they do here when they say legal immigrants. This is what Dana Bash was trying to do. They're trying to convince their cult. They're hoping that the cult sees that and thinks that these are citizens. They're not. They're not. These are illegal immigrants. These are illegal immigrants who Kamala and Biden gave some emergency temporary authorization that they should not, the executive branch should not be able to do, should not be allowed to do. What was it? 20,000 of them that they shipped to this little town, that they flew into this little town. They're not legally here. They're not citizens. Are they technically legally here because the executive branch said, I'm going to wave a magic wand and say that you don't need to go through the legal process and become a citizen temporarily for emergency? It's an emergency, right? I'm going to wave my wand and do something unconstitutional. Does that make them citizens? Does that mean they came here legally? When he continues to push lies about legal immigrants like the one in Springfield, Ohio, when he continues to insist he was not the loser of the 2020 election, I don't think he was the loser either. when he continues to spout how he wants to use our military to round up and deport immigrants who are not white from this country. Did he say that? I want to deport the immigrants who are not white. No, he didn't, did he? That's why it's not in quotes, right? Because it's not a quote, because he didn't say that, because that's what you're lying and you are saying that he said. You are a liar. Look at, they lie about him right here. He wants to deport immigrants who are not white. Really? Where's that quote? They continue. Then he brings the crazies out. And one of those crazies tried to shoot him. One thing Trump can do to reduce the chance that one of these crazies will attempt to assassinate him is to stop charging the American people thousands of dollars per night for his Secret Service protectors to stay at his Trump-owned properties, as reported by NPR and other news outlets. I'm sure each agent has their own room too. Those excess monies can be used to put more Secret Service agents on his protection detail. Wow. Just the viciousness, the uncharitableness, the nastiness here. Otherwise, why should the American people continue to put out extra millions for protection that's only needed because the former Felicia, that's who wrote this, some lady named Felicia, the former, she put that in italics to highlight it, to just dig it in. Former president can't keep from lying and bringing these issues on him and bringing assassination on himself. Incredible, Felicia. Leftist women are some of the most vicious people I've ever met. Some of the most vicious. Oh, man. I want to show you, let's see. Let me show you this one. There's a couple of news clips, a couple more of them just blaming, like videos of them blaming him. Here we go. Let's put this one up. Oh, man. Okay. NBC's Lester Holt, quote, today's apparent. Look how they use apparent. It's almost like when they use possible, right? Kamala Harris also used possible when she released her statement. Possible assassination. NBC's Lester Holt, today's apparent assassination attempt comes amid increasingly fierce rhetoric on the campaign trail. Oh, is someone finally going to talk about the rhetoric coming from the Democrats and Kamala Harris? Oh, no, they're talking about Trump again. Okay. Mr. Trump, his running mate, J.D. Vance, continued to make baseless claims about Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, resulting in bomb threats. Look how they just put it in there like it's a fact. Their rhetoric resulted in bomb threats, but Kamala's rhetoric, did it result in assassination attempts? No. Somehow this is still Trump's fault. All of this is Trump's fault. It's not them calling him Hitler, telling you he's the worst person in the world, saying he's going to end democracy and take all your rights away and put you in camps. It's not them saying all of these crazy, scary things and inciting people to violence. It's not that. It's somehow the victim's fault.
Today's apparent assassination attempt comes amid increasingly fierce rhetoric on the campaign trail itself. Mr. Trump, his running mate J.D. Vance continue to make baseless claims about Haitian immigrants in Ohio. This weekend, there were new bomb threats in that town. Our Maggie Vespa is in Columbus, Ohio.
And can you imagine? Somebody just tried to kill the president yesterday. The former president. The president. We still call him president. Somebody just tried to kill our president, our former president yesterday. And instead of talking about that and what led to that and the violence and the rhetoric on the left or anything, or the investigation even they're like, let's do another story about how Trump and JD Vance are responsible for bomb threats from crazy people that we don't even know who they are. That's important. Lester Holt's like, let me do a story about this. Let's go back to Ohio. They just tried to kill the president, you flipping moron. What are you doing? Why are you doing this?
Maggie Vespa is in Columbus, Ohio, with more.
Lester, simply put, Springfield, Ohio has been inundated by threats over the last several days, closing government buildings, schools, hospitals. Today, effectively closing a local university campus after administrators said someone threatened a mass shooting targeting Haitians. This in light of, officials say, a false.
So first of all, nobody did a mass shooting on Haitians, right? They threatened one. Who's they? Who threatened it? We don't know. Could it have been the left who called in this fake threat? Might it have been? Oh my gosh. Okay, here's another one. F Your Short Memory, who is a great follow on X, on Twitter, by the way. I saw she retweeted this one and she correctly calls this DARVO, which we mentioned at the beginning of this episode, deny and reverse victim offender. And this is a clip from Curtis Hoke. Watch MSNBC's Alex Witt argue that the Trump campaign needs to turn down the rhetoric now that Donald Trump has been shot at for the second time in 3 months. Here we go. They all get their marching orders. It's weird, right? How Lester Holt and Alex Witt, they're all saying the same thing. Trump's responsible. Trump's violent rhetoric is responsible for his own assassination attempt. They're all saying the same thing. Isn't it weird, leftists, how that happens like every time? You guys don't ever catch on, do you? You don't ever catch on.
Yeah. Do you expect there to be calls from within the Trump campaign to do that? Because he's going to reach out to his supporters and say, let's take this down. We do not know, again, the source of any gunshot or gunshots. We don't know who's responsible for this. The whole thing has yet to be 100% confirmed from start to finish how this all played out. But do you expect to hear anything from the Trump campaign about toning down the rhetoric, toning down the violence, or would that be atypical of the former president?
Well, Alex, remember back to the assassination attempt on President Trump's life and how, there was talk of a new tone, and then the Republican convention was, by Trumpian standards, muted. And it did seem like he was, just trying to take it down a few notches. But then,
I'm sorry. Do they ever say what this crazy violent rhetoric of his is, ever? I like to ask them this. I was asking some people on Twitter this, and I'll ask people this in real life if they say this shit to me. Sorry for my language. Excuse my language. But I'm just ask them, what violent rhetoric? Can you be specific? What tone? What is it he said that you think is? Find out. Find out, because they don't flip and know. Or they'll say something that's completely false. Oh, like the Charlottesville thing, which was a lie.
and by the end of his convention,
Or the bloodbath lie, which Kamala repeated. They'll say that. Oh, he said it's going to be a bloodbath. Yeah, there's going to be a bloodbath in the auto industry if we keep a Democrat in office. That's what he said.
speech, we were kind of back to where we started. So I don't know how long this could, this moment of unity for the country where we come together and we say, I don't want any political opposition to be under threat of violence. It's not okay. Any threat of violence, we don't want. I would love for us to have a unity type moment, but I think
that's weird, because you could just come here and join us in unity, you dumb. I'm sorry. We are asking you to say you don't want political violence against Trump. We're asking you to say that. We're asking you to tone down your rhetoric, calling him Hitler and a Nazi and lying about him and lying and falsely saying he defended white nationalists, which he's never done. Lying about him and saying he said he's threatened a bloodbath if he doesn't win. We're asking you to stop doing that disgusting stuff and stand with us in unity against this. Why won't you do it? Why won't you do it? I apologize. Just a little fired up there. It's extremely frustrating. It's extremely frustrating to watch stuff like this, to be gaslit. Again, if you're familiar with abusive people, abusive individuals, if you've gone through abuse, gaslighting actually means something. It's not like when the left just uses it, like they don't even know what it means. A lot of them, you see them online, they're like, that's gaslighting. It's like, no, that's stating a different opinion than you have. Like they use it for everything. It actually means something. And it's when you try to convince someone that reality is not real, that the truth is not true, that what they're seeing around them is not actually happening. It's extremely frustrating to be in an abusive relationship with our government, with the politicians, with our media, and to have them gaslight us constantly and tell us that reality is not real and that we're the abusers while they hit us. It's extremely frustrating. And it's also very frustrating to have fellow Americans, like some of you on the left who think you're liberal, who are still in that cult. And I know a lot of us in the chat, we have friends who are still in your cult, my old cult. Some of us have family who are still in it. It's extremely frustrating to have you with your blinders on, just drinking that Kool-Aid, that Jonestown Kool-Aid, just drinking it right up, and just Stockholm syndrome going right along with these abusers and sociopaths, and not know how to reach you. Rodney, thank you very much. He says, no need to apologize. You're spot on target. I appreciate it. Yeah, Brahma. Hey, Brahma Bull. Brahma Bull, I got to see during this past month when my husband and I were on his tour. And that was so much fun. And I really loved it. I loved it, even though it was a short amount of time. Got to see Brahma Bull and Mrs. Brahma Bull. He says they don't want unity. They want subjugation. Yeah, that's what they want. That's what the cult leaders want. I'm trying to figure out what I should spend time on next, because I still have a lot of things pulled up, but we are almost at 2 hours. The guy, by the way, the shooter, Ryan Routh, they went and scrubbed his Facebook, his Twitter, his Instagram. Like they pulled it all down immediately. Fortunately, several people, including myself, screenshot a lot of this stuff before it got taken down. So you can find a lot of it online. I'll be posting some of those screenshots later. This guy was, according to his social media, complete lefty, crazy, yes, nut job, if you go based on social media. But there are reasons to believe that he may have been operating for, I don't know, a shadowy 3-letter agency, possibly. Who knows? Who knows? But I don't have time to get into all that today, but you can find the stuff about this shooter, some of it online. They always go in and scrub things now, don't they? They don't want you to see what's up there. They don't want you to see the original source material and judge for yourself. They want to tell you who he was. They want to tell you who these shooters were. Isn't it weird how the first assassin, the one who they killed, that first assassin, like somebody said, we're like 3 months out. 3 months out, and they said he had no social media footprint. Yeah, right. I don't believe that. Look at some of this. Remember this? James Lindsay retweeted this and said, never forget. This was Huffington Post. Remember this craziness right before Biden dropped out And all of the left, including some politicians and celebrities, were talking about how this falsely saying, hey, the Supreme Court just gave Joe Biden the legal okay to assassinate Donald Trump, which was false, which is crazy. But they were saying it and they were suggesting it. Huffington Post was suggesting it. There was a politician who did a video we covered at the time who was saying, if I were Joe Biden, I would send the SWAT team in and I would take out the whole Supreme Court, who was talking about assassinating. There were people, professional, respectable people talking about how Biden should now have someone assassinate Trump. They were saying this. This isn't stochastic terrorism, leftist is not, really. What if the roles were reversed? Then is it stochastic terrorism? If it's about Kamala? I mentioned the shooter, Ryan Routh. He repeated a lot of stuff, a lot of crazy stuff that the left says in his social media posts. That's probably why they scrubbed it. Here's one of the things he said. Also, I saw, and in some of the screenshots I have, he was a fan of John Oliver's and Jon Stewart's and Colbert. He tweeted at them. Now, if the roles were reversed, the media would be running with that, and they would be asking John Oliver and Colbert and Jon Stewart to disavow. Remember when there have been nut jobs who write these manifestos, who go on shooting sprees, and then in the manifesto, in this crazy manifesto, there's like Tim Pool's name is mentioned as something they listen to or something, and they're like, Tim Pool's responsible. Are they doing that with Ryan Routh? Are they saying the Colbert Report is responsible? He listened to the Colbert Report. No, they're not doing that. Double standard hypocrites. But here's a tweet of his, the shooter, Ryan Routh. Here's a tweet of his. POTUS. Your campaign should be called something like KADAF. Keep America democratic and free. Trump's should be MASA. Make Americans slaves again, master. Where'd that last M come from? Wouldn't that be MASAM? Anyway, this guy's insane. Like I said, make American slaves again, master. And then he puts in all caps, democracy is on the ballot and we cannot lose. We cannot afford to fail. The world is counting on us to show the way. Where have we heard all of that before? Where have we heard that phrase before? Democracy's on the ballot. Who's he mimicking? What propaganda has he ingested so many times? Let's say he's a nut job and he's not some operative. Let's say he's just a random nut job, which he could be. What propaganda has he been ingesting that he's now spitting out? Oh, it's Kamala Harris's propaganda. It's the Democrats' propaganda. It's their hateful, violent rhetoric, their lies, their falsehoods. It came from Joe Biden. It came from Kamala Harris. It came from the Colbert Report and the left and the media and the talking heads and the celebrities. It came from Bette Midler. It came from all the Chelsea Handler. Name a celebrity. It came from them. Cher. Democracy's on the ballot. There he is. He's repeating. He's telling you what he's listening to, who he's listening to. Let's take a little trip down memory lane for a second. Cernovich shared this clip. I was talking about this history of political violence on the left, this recent history anyway. They memory hold the Steve Scalise shooting. Look at this. Cernovich says, when Rachel Maddow radicalized and inspired an attempted mass shooting of congressional Republicans, this was at that baseball game, remember? Joy Reid blamed Steve Scalise for being shot. She blamed him. Sounds like what they're doing to Trump, isn't it?
Obviously, everybody is wishing the congressman well and hoping that he recovers. But Steve Scalise has a history that we've all been forced to sort of ignore on race. He did come to leadership after some controversy over attending a white nationalist event. Obviously, everybody is wishing the congressman well. And
what? Given how they lie about Trump and how they say he defended white nationalists, which he's never done, I don't believe that for a second. I have to go look up that event. Is it possible that he appeared at some event he didn't know was a white nationalist event. Yes, but I doubt it. I really doubt it. I think that's a lie. I'd have to go look that up. Again, though, regardless, what are they doing in this clip? They're saying it's his fault. It's his fault he got shot. It's his fault. It's not the left's fault. It's his fault. It's Steve Scalise's fault. It's his own fault he got shot. This is the one I was looking for before. I thought this was a great point. Pine Barren says, if there were 2 serious assassination attempts on a Democrat candidate, the election would be postponed. Isn't that the case? The FBI would be raiding every church and shooting range in America. The military would be on DEFCON 1, and the media would be covering it nonstop, 24/7 for months. Abso-freaking-lutely. And we would all know the date like we do January 6th. There's been a lot of disgusting stuff that leftists are saying online. I'm sure you've seen some of it. There are politicians and on the left, Democrats and people who work on the staff of politicians who've been posting stuff about how they're sorry, just like last time, they're sorry the shooter missed. That, making jokes about it. It's really gross. I've had people writing to me last night and this morning saying I had to unfriend some people on Facebook because they were just posting really dark, evil stuff about how they're not sorry this happened. They're just sorry the shooter missed. And, I don't begrudge you unfriending those people, because why should you have that darkness in your life or in your sphere? I understand. It's evil. A lot of these people are revealing themselves. It's like it's another one of those mask off moments like COVID was, where all of a sudden these authoritarians took their masks off and showed us who they were. Some of them were in our friends and family. A lot of them were in the government, the media, the celebrities. They took their mask off and showed us they're not actually pro-choice. They do believe the government should be able to force you to do whatever it wants to force you to do with your body. They're authoritarians. They think the government has the right to suspend your liberties. They think the government has a right to tell you can't go to work. They think the government has a right to tell you have to put a mask on your kid. They think the government has a right to coerce you into getting an experimental shot and to segregating you and banning you from establishments if you don't get that shot. They think the government has the right to do all of it. So I was really happy to learn who was a secret authoritarian in my life. It was a mask off moment. It was a great revealing. Who are the fascists in my life? I was happy to learn who some of those people were. Or some of them call themselves Democrats. They call themselves liberals. They call themselves pro-choice. They're a bunch of liars. Maybe they're lying to themselves. I don't know, but they're liars. They're lying to us. They're none of those things. You shall know them by their fruits, by their behaviors, not by what they say they are, but how do they behave? I don't care if you call yourself a liberal. If you behave in illiberal ways and you support illiberal policies, you are not a liberal. Just like I don't care if you say you are a woman. If you have a penis and XY chromosomes, you are a man. I do not care what you say you are. My dog says he's a cat. He's still a dog. Oh my gosh, John. Yes, remember that? Remember when they put out all these it was the CDC and all these officials, and they said you can't go outside, you can't spread, you can't go to events. You're not allowed. The government's not going to allow you to. And then the BLM riots started, and doctors issued another press release and said, "Hey, racism is also a national emergency and a public health crisis." They said this. And so we're going to allow you to go to public events now. As long as it's a BLM event, a BLM protest, you can go. You should go. Because even though COVID is a public health crisis, racism is also a public health crisis. And so we're going to let you go outside and congregate for that. Wow. And again, a lot of you people on the left who think you're liberals, you just ate this crap up. You were in Animal Farm. Have you read it? Have you read George Orwell? I know you'd like to pretend like you're smarter than everyone else, and we know you're not. And I know a lot of you reference these books that you've never read, and you reveal when talking about them that you know nothing about them. You were in Animal Farm. Oh, Mr. Montoya for $5 once again says, you keep using that word woman. I do not think it means what you think it means. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate. Thank you for supporting Deprogrammed. But back to my point, I kind of went on a little tangent, but COVID was a great revealing. It was a great unmasking. We learned who some of these authoritarians were in our lives, these fascists in our lives. And October 7th ended up, in my opinion, being another great revealing. There are a bunch of anti-Semites that took their masks off. Some of them really prominent commentators and influencers. I'm not going to go into that. It's for another time. But suddenly it was like, oh my gosh, what are these people out here doing, talking about the Jews this and the Jews that? I'm not talking about criticism of war or criticism of the Israeli government. I'm talking about people who post blatantly obvious anti-Semitic crap about how the Jews this and the Jews that. So that was a great revealing. And I appreciated that as well. Silver lining, right? It told me who to distance myself from, not let close to me. And then I think this is these assassination attempts is another great revealing, because you're seeing all these people take their masks off. Some of them might be your friends and family on social media. I'm hearing from you guys telling me about friends and family saying disgusting stuff. Some of you are sending me screenshots of disgusting stuff where they're saying, you know, third time's a charm, things like that. Like, I hope someone tries again. It's gross. And I am sorry. I am sorry, because it sucks to be disappointed in someone, to learn that about them. It really sucks. I'm sorry about that. But what I've said to some of you privately is the silver lining is that you know that about them now. You know that they are eaten up by this darkness. Maybe they'll come out of it one day, but for now, they're eaten up by the dark. And that's good to know about them. That's good to know about people. I am happy when dark people show me who they are, so I can make sure I don't let them too close to me. Randy Wallen, thank you, Randy, for the $2. Says sociopaths cannot be honest with themselves. It's true. They can't be. So when I'm saying leftists, be honest with yourselves, I know that only applies to a small percentage of them. So I've got to wrap this up, but I wanted to end with our response. What should our response be to this? Yes, John, do not fall for the provocation. They want nothing more. They want nothing more than for some nut job on the right to take revenge, to do something crazy, so they can run with that headline and they can use it to lock down our liberties even more, so they can use it for some great evil. They want nothing more than for that to happen, so it can dominate the news cycle and they can use it. They want that to happen so bad. So don't take the bait, first of all. Second of all, be fearless. Be fearless. I mean, I'm not saying don't have fears. We all have fears. I'm saying walk through your fears and learn how to walk through them and get to the other side and stand in truth. Have the hard conversations with the people who say crap to you, or just if they're too dark, just cut them out. If they're too dark and it's not worth it, just cut them out. You don't have any responsibility to keep those people on your friend list on Facebook if they're saying just disgusting, evil stuff. But the ones who you think have good intent and good hearts, who are just in the cult, who are misguided and brainwashed, have those conversations with them. Talk to them. Come out of the MAGA closet. Come out of the wrong thinker closet. Come out of the classical liberal or actual liberal closet, whichever one you're in, and tell them, ha ha, I'm not a leftist like you. I am a real liberal. We still exist. Have those conversations with them. That's one thing you can do. Another thing you can do is pray. If you're a believer, now if you're not, I know you can just skip this point because you don't believe in prayer. That's okay if you don't. I'm not talking to you then. I'm talking to the believers. You can pray. There is a Bible verse that came to mind yesterday. It's come to mind for me a lot over the past few years, and it's a Genesis verse, and it says, the first part of it is what you intended, or it says, you intended to harm me, but God intended it for good. And the reason that came to mind is because I do believe God can use anything for good. He can use any kind of evil, like something that's actually evil, like assassination attempts, like political violence, acts of political violence. He can use it for good. It doesn't mean it's not evil. It's an evil thing that happened. He can find a way to use it for good if we let him. I know that because that's happened in my life, where horrible things have happened and God has given me the ability to use them for good. Or horrible things I did, God has given me the ability to use them for good. Like being in the woke cult for 20 years, given me the ability to use it for good, the opportunity. You have to take the opportunity. It doesn't mean that every evil thing will be used for good. It means there's an opportunity there. And so I'm praying for that. And I think you can pray for that if you're a believer. Like pray that God uses this evil, this political violence on the left, uses these assassination attempts, the rhetoric, the stochastic terrorism on the left, uses it for good, that something good comes out of it. And I think it can. I think it can wake more people up, more actual liberals up. As I started the very beginning of this video, noticing the political violence on the left in my own tribe, on my side, those were really important part. That was a really important part of me waking up and leaving the woke left. And so maybe you're someone in the woke left, or maybe you don't consider that you are in the woke left. I might consider that you are, but maybe you don't. You just think you're in the middle, or you don't care, or you're not a political person. I know some of you say I'm not a political person. Okay, and so maybe you have questions, and you're like one of those people who's sort of who knows me through social media, and you're like one of those people who's like, Keri's a little crazy. So you guys say that because you know, oh my gosh, she posted a picture with a MAGA hat now. You know, she's crazy. Okay, maybe you're one of those people. And you're looking for answers because you're looking at this political violence that's happening from the left, and you're looking at these assassination attempts, and maybe you're starting to notice things. Maybe you're starting to notice that the media is gaslighting you. Maybe you're starting to notice that the media has a crazy double standard, like what we covered today, that they're hypocrites. Maybe you're starting to notice and you're resenting the fact that they are treating you like you're stupid, first of all. And so if that's you and you're having questions and you found your way here, I pray that you wake up because of this. I pray that something good comes from this evil. I pray that you start to question the dominant ideology in this country. I pray that you start to ask questions about the Democrats and the left, and start to ask about, like, what do I believe in? But if I say I'm a liberal, what does that mean? What do I believe in? And then look at the Democratic Party and ask yourself honestly, do they believe in these same things? If you're a liberal and you oppose war and you oppose censorship and you oppose violence, does that really describe the Democrats anymore at all? If you're a liberal and you oppose racism in law and you know, legalized racism and legalized sex-based discrimination, race-based discrimination, does that describe the Democrats? Do they oppose that? They don't. So if you're a believer, just, I would say we can pray that people who have those questions start to wake up, that God uses this awful evil for some amount of good. Randy for $2. Thank you, Randy. Carries a whole lot of crazy. Good thing I like crazy. I'm a crazy. I'm crazy because I bought a MAGA hat. Like, they really do believe this. I know we're laughing about it because to us it's absurd, but I was in that world and I know how they do. They think it's crazy. They will describe, and I have heard of people I know describe me. People I know who are still in that woke cult describe me that way. Keri went crazy. That's what they say about me leaving the woke left. That I went crazy. It's so funny. Keri believes in freedom of speech and the First and Second Amendment, and she's gone crazy. Keri's a classical liberal. Oh, this has gone crazy. That's really what I've heard. I'm sure some of you have heard that too about yourselves. Do they think it's a phase? Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Some of them do. Others told me explicitly they're writing me off forever. You know, one of them tried to do an intervention on me, John, when I left the woke cult. And they had all been talking, and they sent one person to Texas and had like an ideological intervention with me. It was basically said, if you leave the cult, you're never coming back. And I'm like, although, you know, she called it the tribe. She did use the word tribe. And I was like, I don't really want to come back. So that's cool. Like, I'm leaving for good. Okay. I gotta go. Just a reminder, if you were in the Austin, oh wait, Randy, one more for $2. Thank you, Randy. Response cannot be whataboutism. It always fails. I'm not sure what is in regards to, but I don't like whataboutism. Okay. Tomorrow, if you're in the Austin area, we are going to have a meetup. It's a last minute meetup. We decided to do it. I've got a friend in town who's a special surprise who will be there, and we're going to meet up and go to see Matt Walsh's movie, Am I Racist? I will do a plug here. If you haven't already seen it, go into my Deprogrammed archives here on YouTube. And I did a 3-part series on 2 of the women, the grifters, the race grifters, the anti-racist grifters who appear in this movie, Sarah Rao and Regina Jackson. And they do these dinners. And I think I called it, oh gosh, what did I call it? There might be a mod, who knows? But I did a 3-part series on them and their racist dinner parties where they charge white ladies an arm and a leg to come and be berated and told that they're racist. It's crazy. It's like these rich white ladies paying lots of money to be indoctrinated and abused. And I think I called it Dinner for Racists or something. So anyway, we're going to go see tomorrow. They're in this movie. I can't wait. Robin DeAngelo's in this movie. We're going to go see it. Everybody said great things about it. If you are in the Austin area, you can join us. You can meet us. We're going to meet there at 7:00. The movie starts at 7:30. Here's the info on the screen. And it's at the Cinemark 14 in Round Rock. And that's at 4401 North Highway 35. And we're meeting again at 7 p.m. in the lobby. The show starts at 7:30. Come and join us. We'll just have a grand old time. It should be fun. And if you've been to one of the Deprogrammed meetups in the past, it would be nice to see you again. And if you haven't, well, come on out. We'll have fun. Okay, that's it. That's the last announcement. Okay. I gotta go. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And just keep the faith. Even if you're not a believer, keep the faith. There's a lot of craziness in the world. There's a lot of violence, and I still have peace. I still have calm, even in the midst of it, even when things are chaotic. I still have that. Instead of background anxiety like you have when you're in the woke cult, I just have this sort of background peace, even when things are terrible and the worst they've been, you know, in my personal life. I've still had that weird background peace. I can't really explain that, I don't think, to non-believers, but believers always get it. They're like, oh, I know what you're talking about. So, okay, I'll see you guys later. I'm back to my regular schedule, so we'll see you guys next on Wednesday for a popped culture, I believe. Okay, talk to you later.